the sword of Mercury. And today, we're going to be talking about neuroplasticity. And this is really fundamental if you want to learn anything, any skill, any piece of information, any art form, whatever it is. You must have a certain amount of neuroplasticity to be able to easily attain that state which you can learn. And I just wrote down over here, you could probably read it for yourself, but I'll just read it here, or whisper it actually. When people don't understand something or have an inability to understand an alternate viewpoint, it's because they lack the ability to understand due to low neuroplasticity. And neuroplasticity, in a short form, is essentially the brain's ability to rewire itself and make new neural connections. As you get older, this decreases, but there are things we can do to increase it or to ensure that we maintain our neuroplasticity or plasticity. So, let's get started. What I have here is kind of a description of just some other dynamics that take place around this. And ideally, if this process worked perfectly with the mind, in a sense that, let's say, everybody had the ability to rewire their mind at a pace that is in alignment with the cosmos, like if we are all connected to the cosmic flow and able to maintain states of flow that occur when we are in alignment with divine guidance or higher self or the energy in the field, whatever you want to call it, then essentially we would have this state present in which we can maintain our objective awareness of the self and create change that will take us towards what we want to see in the outside world or in our environment faster by utilizing the method of understanding something, seeing say for example, you encounter a similar event over and over again in life, or you encounter the same obstacle over and over again. If you understand what the lesson is, you understand the right alignment, intentional movement, you can make it so that pattern does not repeat itself. However, because most of the time, most of the people in society, we go by usually what we feel, which is a fleeting emotion, such as somebody disrespects you, you get angry, you get agitated, you wanna, lash back at them or whatever. Unintentional movement, fleeting emotion. So, feeling and fleeting is interesting how those two go together. But essentially, because it is not something that is in alignment with a higher understanding, you're not able to hold on to it. Like anger, it doesn't seem to have any rhyme or reason a lot of the time, or how should we say, greater perspective behind it. It doesn't have a greater perspective behind it. You use the energy once and it's gone, and you don't learn anything from it, right? Because it is a very high energy, fleeting emotion, which is prone to a lot of change, so you don't hang on to it. It's fast burning. But if you understand alignment, you understand what am I supposed to learn from this, instead of getting angry in a situation, then by accessing that higher perspective and realizing that, hey, maybe this is actually in my benefit that this is happening, and because you take on that mindset, your emotions don't gravitate towards these fleeting these kind of fleeting emotions that are based on just whatever is available to you. You start thinking from a higher dimensional perspective. You start seeing objectivity and actual awareness. So, by doing that, that is a state of actually exercising this plasticity. It's shown in science, in fact, that you can reprogram your mind and your belief systems just by thinking. So this is why the thoughts that you think, though every thought might not be a reflection of your true self, the thoughts that you think most frequently in the sense of where do I want to go, what do I want to do, who do I want to be, those things become reflective of some aspect of the self. And if you feel they're not, then it's probably because you still have something to learn from that piece of yourself. And then once you do let it go, it's gone. And you can move on. And you don't get riled up, you don't get angry, you don't get any of these fleeting emotions, sadness, whatever, desperation, depression, anxiety, fear, confusion, hopelessness, whatever it is. You don't get that because you see beyond an emotional state. You start seeing from a higher viewpoint. So, in any case, point is that neuroplasticity is present when this is taking place. And if we can teach ourselves to say, let me change my perspective on how I'm looking at this rather than just jumping to the direct emotional response that is in front of me, then you are more capable of making change. And I have a saying actually that I came up with just recently, and I encourage you to maybe apply this to yourself, especially guys, if you're watching this. And obviously anger is an emotion I would say guys are more prone to frequent than girls, especially since we often use it to get stuff done. Like, you work or exercise harder in the gym when you're angry, or you have energy to burn off or whatever. Yeah, sure, but I'm not saying anger is not useful, or it can be used almost like the fire to cook your food, but I am saying that this is the saying that I have. I possess anger. I don't let anger possess me. And the concept of that is almost, if you think of anger almost like a metaphysical entity or state of being, then you are thinking from a higher perspective. You are thinking that I am possessing this force. This force is an aspect of me. I am not an aspect of this force. I am not letting this force possess me. I am possessing this force. So, if you want to use anger as a fuel to drive you, or something in your toolbox, I highly recommend that you consider it under those guides, that you are possessing anger. Anger is not possessing you. So, going back to neuroplasticity here. Let me know what triggers you guys like, by the way, and I can frequent those triggers more. So when we talk about neuroplasticity, we are talking about this concept of the brain's ability to rewire itself, and every time that your brain makes a connection between two things, connects energy between the hemispheres, there's electrical impulses that are being sent, which allows for this process to take place, and how much of it can take place. And it occurs at this higher state around the third eye region, where the electrical impulse is passing between the two hemispheres. Here is the emotional center, and when you don't have that higher perspective of understanding, you think from this lower center, and all of this, your neuroplasticity, the electrical activity, phase of emotionality instead of higher understanding, this becomes like almost a process that it's just given to you in a sense where it's like, okay, here you have no choice in this situation. This is the way you're like designed to react or whatever, because you're not thinking from a perspective outside of yourself or on some higher level. So it's almost like a game of poking somebody, and the idea is that when you poke, the other person just automatically pokes back. Life just becomes a game like that because you don't think from that higher perspective. Your instinct is to poke back every time somebody pokes you. So instead, find a way to change your perspective to a version of yourself that is doesn't get poked, in a sense. Anyway, getting back to this concept of neuroplasticity, when we talk about this is like somewhat of a tricky concept to explain just because we are talking about something very complex in a sense. We're talking about what is actually going on at a level of consciousness inside the brain. And one of the ways I think of this is almost like the multiverse theory, where all the different versions of yourself exist simultaneously, but since you all are vibrating differently, then like you essentially cannot see each other, right? So because the vibration is slightly different between you and the other versions of yourself, just very subtly, you cannot interact with one another, but they're simultaneously present. The way that you move between universes or realities is by taking that perspective of higher understanding, in which the information can be relayed between the selves more congruently. So when this phenomenon happens of the electrical impulses being sent in the brain, you are seeing all the different perspectives available from the other versions of the self, and you are acting with the awareness that you need to. When we are talking about how this relates back to us, we can do things actually to increase the aspect of neuroplasticity within us, such as exercise is shown to increase neuroplasticity. Juggling actually was shown in a study to improve neuroplasticity, so jugglers are actually shown to have higher neuroplasticity. And I think that a lot of times neuroplasticity is more about how you approach something rather than it being something that is simply built to act all the time simply by itself. So what I mean is, say for example, you're trying to learn something, right? And like the teacher is very boring, right? Like, are you going to be engaged or have the attention or neuroplasticity to reprogram your brain? Or are you going to be like, this is boring, this is not engaging, I'm not having fun, and you're going to nod off or whatever, right? But if you're engaged, if you're having fun, if you're like, oh yeah, this guy's saying some good stuff, then like you're going to be engaged and you're going to look at it different. You're going to change your perspective, right? So that is a factor as well. Like, and that's why a lot of times, like, I feel that the system that we learn in is especially flawed because it's not built off having people engage or having them have a good time or have fun. I think that you can only really learn to the greatest extent when you're having fun, or there's interest going on, or there's some kind of engagement in the process, right? If that is not happening, then, I don't know, your information might be falling on deaf ears in any sense. Point is that when things are new and interesting and engaging, neuroplasticity is more likely to be present. So there's a lot of things that contribute to neuroplasticity. And when we talk about like what is actually going on at a conscious level with these electrical impulses. This whole process is releasing chemicals into the bloodstream, which creates how you think and feel, and it also influences, in turn, what decisions you will make in your life, and therefore how your life will take shape or play out, right? And if you are approaching like glass ceilings or bumping up against glass walls in life, it's most likely because you need more neuroplasticity to learn something, to overcome some kind of barrier or block that you're having. And then once you attain the neuroplasticity to do that, you could create a new way of thinking in your mind that reflects you being able to complete or overcome that block or unblock it. So it's not uncomplicated. It's not uncomplicated, but it's almost there, because essentially we all have the ability to reprogram our subconscious mind by improving our neuroplasticity. And that's another thing. If you're an athlete or a meditator or somebody who's seeking to reprogram their subconscious mind faster, you need to have higher neuroplasticity in order to do that. So engaging your mind in ways that is going to produce more neuroplasticity is imperative, and also getting a fundamental concept of how this process is actually taking place and what is going on when you have neuroplasticity and when you are thinking from a higher state of consciousness, and how that in turn has knock-on effects and affects all other aspects of your life is imperative for you getting that big picture view. So neuroplasticity, very important. And maybe one of the things I'll bring up here near to the end is just other side where it says here individual equals indivisible. When you have there's a reason why these words sound similar. Individual represents who you are, being in a state that you are separate from the cosmos. So in all of the cosmos, what is the part that defines you separate from that state? So what is indivisible? Meaning, what almost defines you, or what is the aspect of you separate from the cosmos, right? What is the aspect of you that exists within that greater aspect of reality? And when you start to contemplate or philosophize about things like this, you start to approach that higher state of conceptualization, which we have here drawn on the board. You start to imagine things from a higher perspective. You start to play out the big picture, in a sense, where you see from a state of pure objectivity, and see the cosmos from a state of pure objectivity, and then you develop who you want to be relative to that, so you can be that version of yourself. Because it's almost like one of the things I say that is almost a fundamental of martial arts, which so many people overlooked, is, for example, in Karate Kid, they say first learn stand. I say first learn see, because many people are not always aware of what is going on in the environment, right? Before you can move through an environment or self-express yourself through martial arts in a situation, you must first be able to see all of the things in the environment. And when you see the things in the environment and are aware of how everything is moving, how the environment is shaped around you, how the factors that are in the environment will affect your movement, then you can move through it in the way that you see fit, because you are aware of everything that is already present, and then apply how you will interact in that environment afterwards. So, all important points for conceptualization of this concept. And is mainly what I have for you today on the concept of neuroplasticity. Just remember that regardless of what age you are, you can always increase your neuroplasticity. And just like anything else, it's more determined by the willpower and intention that you put into achieving that state, rather than it is defined by something as straightforward as age or whatever, because that is all relative to each individual and how they're moving through space and time. Einstein's theory of general relativity would tell you this, right? That how you are moving in the environment and in the field determines how things are moving around you and how energy is moving in relativity to you. So the same thing applies to consciousness or age, but more so consciousness, because consciousness is not bound by the same constraints that encompass the world that we typically apply our scientific or physics principles to. In any case, this is what I have for you today. Concept of neuroplasticity. And let me know if you want like a part 2 on this, because it is a very big topic and I try to just cover like a lot of the important parts today and the factors to be aware of when attempting to alter it for your benefit. But keep in mind that these things are going to change over time, in a sense where, it's not like you do the exercise one day and immediately it changes, or meditate one day and you have the big breakthrough, right? So just keep these things in mind, and that all change is a gradual process. And in any case, I hope you learned something, and if you are wanting to see a part 2 of this, or see me talk more about this concept or other similar topics, leave a comment below telling me as much, or let me know something that you liked or want to see more of, including the ASMR aspect of the triggers and what kind of triggers. I didn't bust out our tappy marker today, or our box, or our tea mug, but perhaps in another video we'll do very soon. I will. And let me know if you like seeing more of the science stuff or more of the spirituality stuff. Tell me if you want me to talk about a certain topic, and I will do my best to cover it in another episode, another video used to podcasting. Check out my podcast if you are interested in topics that I discuss. It's called Moonstruck, and I will link it in the description below. So again, I encourage you to like, subscribe, and help support the channel, because it does really help. And I will see you guys in the next video.